Coming up next on an all-Boeing edition of this week's Maximus Aviation's Newsweek in Review. This week, the FAA said it was requiring U.S. operators of Boeing 737 Classic Series jets to check for possible wire failures stemming from an investigation into an Indonesian crash in January. I'll have the details. Meanwhile, as Boeing continues to maintain radio silence on the progress of their proposed new mid-size airplane, Rolls-Royce has been ready and willing to talk to anybody who will listen, adding credence to the ongoing speculation that Boeing is indeed going ahead with its NMA replacement. Well, there is some good news this week for Boeing's flagship MAX aircraft as it begins delivering jets once again following yet another shutdown for electrical grounding issues. Also, there's word that while Emirates continues to wait for its delayed 777X jets, they may be planning to trade in some of those orders for the somewhat smaller 787 Dreamliner. Well, it seems that the United States Congress still has more questions they want Boeing and the FAA to answer, as this week they have demanded Boeing and the FAA turn over documents pertaining to Boeing's quality control management on all of their entire product line. Also, I'll tell you about Ryanair as they grow ever more impatient while they wait for the new MAX orders to arrive. And finally, I'll show you how an Air New Zealand 787 drew a Kiwi bird in the sky in an effort to raise awareness for children with disabilities and illnesses. All that and more is coming up on this special Boeing issue of Maximus Aviation's Newsweek in Review. Greetings everybody, Maximus here. I hope you're all doing well, wherever you may be all around this great big world of ours. Welcome to a special all-Boeing edition of Maximus Aviation Newsweek in Review. It's been a while since our last aviation news update, but that's mostly because aviation news has been pretty slow lately. But this week there have been quite a few Boeing stories to bring you. So as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And now, the news. The FAA said this week that it was requiring U.S. operators of 143 737 Classic Series jets to check for possible wire failures stemming from an investigation into an Indonesian crash in January. The FAA said the issue affected 1,041 737-300, 400, and 500 Classic Series airplanes worldwide. The FAA issued an airworthiness directive for operators to verify that the flap synchro wire, which plays a role in the operation of the aircraft's autothrottle system, is securely connected to a safety sensor. The wire failure could go undetected by the autothrottle computer on the affected airplanes and pose a safety risk. The FAA is requiring some speedier checks than had been suggested by Boeing. But the 737 MAX and the 737 NG is unaffected by the directive. The FAA and Boeing identified the potential problem during the investigation of the January 9 crash of the Sriwijaya Air Flight 182 in the Indonesian capital. The FAA said there was no evidence the flap synchro wire issue had a role in the accident, though the possibility of a failed connection presented a safety concern warranting prompt attention. The FAA said a faulty connection could result in the failure of the autothrottle system to detect the position of the aircraft's flaps if the plane's engines were operating at different thrust settings due to another malfunction. The FAA is requiring follow-on inspections every 2,000 flight hours after the first. Affected U.S. operators are Aloha Air Cargo, DHL, iAero Airways, Colita Charters, and Northern Air Cargo. While Boeing continues to maintain radio silence on the progress of the future of the proposed new mid-size airplane, Rolls-Royce has been ready and willing to talk to anybody who will listen, adding credence to the ongoing speculation that Boeing is indeed going ahead with its NMA replacement for the 757 and 767 aircraft. Rolls-Royce announced last week that they are holding discussions with Boeing about their new mid-size replacement. At their annual meeting last week, Rolls-Royce Chief Executive Officer Warren East said, "It is fairly well documented that Boeing is exploring the opportunity for new aircraft. Like the other engine manufacturers, I'm sure we are in dialogue with Boeing about that." East said that the discussions are different now than they were in 2019, right before the MAX crisis and before Rolls-Royce bowed out of the bidding to supply engines to Boeing's new mid-range project. Rolls-Royce pulled out because their UltraFan engine wouldn't be ready in time for the proposed mid-decade target Boeing had set for the NMA. However, much has changed between early 2019 and now. For one, there was the 2-year grounding of the MAX, which forced Boeing to shelve their NMA plans indefinitely. Also, while Boeing was busy trying to get the MAX back off the ground, Airbus was busy racking up orders for its mid-range jet, the A321neo, which at the present time faces zero competition from Boeing. It was that boom in A321 sales that caused Boeing to aggressively revisit their NMA project. Yet Boeing officially continues to have no comment on the project. However, it's not a secret, especially with Rolls-Royce telling everybody and anybody who will listen that they are in talks with Boeing about supplying the engines for the project. The only hint from Boeing on the project came from CEO Dave Calhoun during Boeing's first quarter meetings this year, when he said that Boeing would take their time with product strategy. But when pressed by an analyst, he said the A321 was in the right space where Boeing's next developments might lead. Boeing resumed deliveries of the 737 MAX last week, following FAA approval of a fix for an electrical grounding issue that sidelined dozens of jets. Reuters was first to report on April 16th that Boeing stopped delivering the MAX jets after the electrical grounding problem was discovered during the manufacturing process just 5 months after the plane returned to service. Earlier this month, the FAA approved Boeing's fix for the electrical issue that affected over 100 MAX jets worldwide. The FAA's approval cleared the way for the MAX's quick return to service. Airlines had pulled dozens of the 737 MAX jets from service in early April after Boeing warned of the electrical problem linked to a backup power control unit in the cockpit on some recently built airplanes. The problem was then found in 2 other places on the flight deck. Deliveries of the MAX were then delayed even further on May 4th, when the FAA required Boeing to supply data proving that the additional 737 MAX electrical systems would not be affected by electrical grounding issues first discovered in these 3 areas of the MAX. Emirates announced this week that they might swap some of its order of 126 Boeing 777X jets for the smaller 787 Dreamliners as part of a sweeping review of its future fleet requirements. The airline is currently in talks with Boeing over its fleet of planes, a review spurred by the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Asked if the airlines could indeed swap its orders to take fewer 777X jets and more Dreamliners, Emirates CEO Sheikh Ahmed told reporters it's always a possibility. Emirates has recently expressed frustration with Boeing over the 777X program, which is 3 years behind schedule. Earlier this month, Emirates President Tim Clark said that Boeing hasn't shared any information with Emirates as to the status of the program in years. Emirates reduced its order from 150 to 126 777X jets as part of a deal that saw the airline order 30 Dreamliners in 2019. Sheikh Ahmed, who has headed Emirates since it was founded in 1985, didn't say when the airline would make a decision on the future of its fleet. A congressional committee sent letters Tuesday to Boeing and the FAA requesting any and all manufacturing quality control records. The letters from Oregon Democrat Peter DeFazio, chair of the U.S. House Committee on Transportation, demands records regarding continued issues with the manufacture and production of Boeing commercial aircraft at facilities both in Washington State and South Carolina. This is the same House committee that investigated the 2 MAX crashes last fall, which was followed by a blistering report on Boeing's failures that led to the MAX crashes. The committee also targeted the FAA, calling their oversight of Boeing's MAX project grossly insufficient. The letters initiate a new investigation into production quality lapses across a range of aircraft. Lapses include an electrical problem that grounded 109 newer 737 MAX jets last month and stopped deliveries of the jets for about 5 weeks. Defective fuselage joins on the 787 that stopped deliveries of the Dreamliner for more than 4 months and led to a buildup of about 100 parked jets requiring inspection and rework. Debris left inside the fuel tanks of newly manufactured aircraft, a problem that reoccurred repeatedly on the 767-based KC-46 Air Force refueling tanker. In light of these new and ongoing issues that point to problems in maintaining quality control and appropriate FAA oversight of production issues, I will thoroughly and deliberately investigate any issues such as those affecting the 737 MAX and the 787 that may endanger public safety, DeFazio said in a statement last Tuesday. Boeing said that the changes in the inspection process shifted the system toward preventing defects before they occur, and that there has been no overall reduction in quality staffing. The U.S. House inquiry suggests Boeing may have to reassess the changes introduced on its quality checks. Boeing said it has received the letter and is reviewing it. Ryanair said it may not take delivery of its first 737 MAX aircraft until after its peak summer period. And Chief Executive Michael O'Leary said this week that Ryanair is quite upset with Boeing, but he also said he believed the production issues would resolve in the medium term, and said they were in talks with Boeing about a significant order of the larger 230-seat MAX 10 aircraft. Ryanair is the largest European customer of the MAX, with 210 firm orders of the 197-seat MAX 200 model. Ryanair said in late March it expected that before summer it would take delivery of 16 of the aircraft, down from an earlier forecast of 40. But Boeing is now promising the first delivery of the jet, which has been delayed in part due to a recent electrical grounding issue, in late May. We are now being told the first delivery will be in late May. However, O'Leary said, "I'm not sure I necessarily believe that." O'Leary also said, as the management team in Seattle continues to mismanage the process, I think there is a real risk we might not see any of these aircraft in advance of summer of 2021. Oh snap, Mikey. Tell us how you really feel. O'Leary said Ryanair was initially due to take delivery of its first MAX 2 years ago, before the jet was grounded for 20 months. However, in a recent statement, the airline said it has agreed to a reasonable and fair compensation for that delay. O'Leary said Ryanair is confident it will have 60 of the aircraft in place for the summer of 2022. Ryanair remains in talks with Boeing for a significant order of the larger MAX 10 aircraft. But we are not quite there on price yet, Chief Financial Officer Neil Sorahan said in an interview. Asked how big such a deal would be, Sorahan said it would cover both fleet renewal and growth in the 2026 to 2030 period. We don't tend to do small deals, he said. And finally, on Saturday, May 15th, an Air New Zealand Boeing 787-9 took to the air for a 2-hour and 42-minute flight to draw a Kiwi in the sky. The Kiwi is the national bird of New Zealand, and this 787 skywriting trip was also for a great cause. The Air New Zealand Boeing 787 drew a Kiwi in the sky as part of a special Koru Care flight for children with disabilities and illnesses. These flights are operated annually to give deserving kids the flight of a lifetime. And in this case, they got an especially awesome experience. Well, that wraps it up for another edition of Maximus Aviation's Newsweek in Review. Thanks for joining me, and as always, before you go, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell. And remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.